Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Charlotte. I'm a registered nurse and every single year at the start of the year I do a recap of all of the books that I read the previous year. We're back at it again. This year we're doing all of the books I read in 2024. Every year I set myself a reading challenge on GoodReads. 2024 the goal was to read 30 books and I'm so glad that I achieved it. I actually went one step further, literally one book further, and I read 31 books. And then my goal for this year, for 2025, is to read 35 books. Anyway, so I've got my GoodReads open on the screen and I'm just going to kind of go through each one of the 31 books that I read in 2024. The first book that I read was actually I think they're called manga. I don't know if this is, I mean to say, I don't really know what like the requirements are for something to be a manga. The first kind of book that I read was a Korean comic. It was Marry My Husband, the tome 1 by Sung Sojak, and it's the first comic that I've ever read. I never really got into comics when I was a kid, but I got into this one because I saw the TV show, like clips of it on TikTok, and it looked really right up my alley. So when I found out that it was based on a comic, I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. I loved it. It was so good. I was like raving about it to my best friend Sonia, and I really enjoyed the TV series as well. So I read the comics and then I streamed the TV series. I would say probably like a good 7 out of 10 for that in terms of enjoyment, and I would highly recommend. Like, it's very dramatic and then the actual romance is top notch too. So, and then the second book that I read was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I'm loving all of the like conspiracy theories and stuff on BookTok at the moment, and I really can't wait for the third book to come out. Yeah, it's really gotten me into the whole like dragon elements of fantasies. I also really enjoyed this. So Iron Flame is part of the Empryon series. It's the second book. I gave that a 3 out of 5, but I did really enjoy it. I didn't like it as much as I enjoyed Fourth Wing, but I still found it really riveting and engaging, and I would also highly recommend. The third book I read was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This one took me a little bit of time to get into, and I was reading other books while reading this one because the first chunk of it I found kind of boring and didn't really enjoy it very much. Once I kind of pushed through to the middle part of the book, I started to really love it. I think I also gave this like a 3 out of 5 stars just because the first bit just took me so long to actually get into it, and I'm having the same issue with the second book in the series. Like, I'm technically reading it, but it's just taking me a really long time to get into it. Yeah, so I liked the fairy tale kind of elements to it, and it kind of felt a little bit like a fever dream while I was reading it as well, which I both enjoyed, and also I think that also contributed a little bit at the start to trying to get into the book and having difficulty with that. Once we got to the middle part, it was great. I then read A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember reading this book. I don't remember anything about it. I don't really know what else to say. I obviously wasn't very memorable, so so the fifth book that I read is one of my favorite books of all time, and that is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. I just think it's a brilliant book. I've made a video about it, like a book review, no spoiler book review, so if you want to know more about House of Hollow you can go check that out. But yeah, I just love all of the symbolism, spooky, like dark fairy tale elements as well. I really love House of Hollow. I think it's a superbly written book, and every time I read it I just enjoy it so much. So I would recommend that. That's a 5 out of 5 for me. And then the sixth book that I read was Bird Box by Josh Malerman. Again, this is another book that I have read multiple times and I have enjoyed every time I read it. It's kind of the only horror thriller book that I really like. I'm not too into the horror genre. It's a book that's really stuck with me, and I kind of want to turn it into like a Halloween tradition where, you know, every Halloween I would read it. I read that I think in like March or something. The next book that I read, my 7th book, was a bit of a mistake because I bought it thinking it was something that it wasn't. I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I didn't see the tiny little warning on the bottom that said it was pretty much just smart. I was reading the blurb and I thought, because I went into Wickles and I was thinking I'm gonna treat myself to like a cute romance book. It's gonna be so sweet and lovely. And I saw Icebreaker, the cover, gorgeous, 10 out of 10 cover. I read the back and I was like, this sounds like such a good plot. I love this. And then I read it and literally page 10, it was just smart. The whole book from page 10, smart, smart, smart. It was like 90% smart and 10% plot. And I was actually super disappointed because the plot and the storyline could have been so good, but it wasn't my cup of tea. And I was just really holding out for like the big competition, and that didn't happen until like the last couple of chapters of the book. And yeah, I just felt really disappointed and let down by it. But I think that was because I had bought it thinking it was something that it wasn't. Whereas if I had bought it knowing that it was smart and having the expectation that it was just smart, then I feel like I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. But because I walked in with a different expectation, I was just really disappointed by it. So, and then the other book that I bought in the same shopping trip to Wickles was Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and I loved this. It's a werewolf vampire romance, and it's kind of got enemies to lovers tropes. I just really enjoyed it, and there was a tiny bit of smut in it, but I feel like most of it focused on the plot, and there was a lot of tension between the main characters that kind of got built up into this beautiful like relationship. I just really enjoyed it. Bride by Ali Hazelwood is another one that I would really recommend. And then I read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by She Who Must Not Be Named. I love Harry Potter, and it's one of those things that I'm just obsessed with, and it's a huge part of like my childhood and, you know, my teenage high school years as well. Like it really, I can't describe how special Harry Potter is to me, because yeah, it just always has been like a comfort thing for me. Anytime I've had like been going through a rough patch or been struggling a little bit, like Harry Potter's just always been there, and it's just always been something that really picks me up and makes me feel really good. So yeah, I reread the whole series this year again. So Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which isn't my favorite one of the series, but still like top tier like children's literature. The next book that I read is another one of my favorite books, and is the book that has inspired me to try and go to Hawaii this year, and that is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. It is a romance novel. It's got enemies to lovers tropes. I just love this book. First off, I feel like the actual writing is really good. Second off, the plot, amazing. I love it. Thirdly, the characters feel real, like they feel like real people, and their relationship and interactions with each other also feels realistic, which is nice. Whenever I read it, I kind of feel like I myself am also on holiday. Just the writing of, or the descriptions of the setting and the places are just amazing. I love that book, 5 out of 5. I read so many of my favorite books this year. It was a really good reading year this year, because the next book that I read is another one of my favorite books, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Again, I did another review, no spoiler review on this book, so if you wanted more information about how great this book is, you can go check out my video on it. But again, the symbolism, the writing, the characters, the setting, like it feels like one of those classical Gothic novels. I love Naomi, who's the main character. She's so like headstrong and just a wonderful protagonist. I just love this book. I could go on about it for ages, but I reread that one and just made me so happy. So that was the next book that I read. And then I read Ingo by Helen Dunmore. This is another book that I read when I was a child. I've got it on my bookshelf. I've got the whole series actually. I got them as part of my lucky book order with Scholastic when they did them in the primary schools, and I still have Ingo because it is a really good book. When I was rereading it, it's quite obvious that the way that it's written is for younger children or preteens. I don't know, you can tell when writing is good writing that respects its readers and respects their reading comprehension and intelligence. For the age group, it's just a wonderfully written novel, and as I say, it's one of those things that introduces you to good literature as you're growing up. It's got the fantasy elements of like mer people, but in a contemporary setting, and it feels realistic. Magic. Loved that. Ingo by Helen Dunmore. Then I read Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is a book that I got at the warehouse for like 10 bucks on the sale shelf. I loved the movie. I had seen the movie years ago and just adored it. I didn't realize that it was based on a book, so when I saw the book in the warehouse, I was like, oh my god, I have to get it. I enjoyed it. I did not love it, the book. I loved the movie a lot more, and it's quite a rare thing for me to say that I loved the movie more than the book, but the book was really funny, and the way that it was written, it's got a very distinct writing style, which when you read it, you'll understand exactly what I mean. I loved the characters. Yeah, again, the settings and the whole like universe or world that Alice Hoffman built in the book was just beautiful. So, and then I got back into the Harry Potter. So the next string of it is just Harry Potter all the way to the end of the series. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban has to be one of my favorite books of all time and is probably my favorite book in the series. Then I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which I actually really love Goblet of Fire. Some people don't enjoy Goblet of Fire, both the movie and the books, and they think it's like the worst bit of the series, but I really love Goblet of Fire.
And I will die on that hill.
And then I read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is Mum's favourite one, and then Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and then Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which is my next favourite part of the book series. I love the Battle of Hogwarts at the end of it. I just feel like the movies was good with the Battle of Hogwarts, but the books just did it so much better. I finished the Harry Potter series and then I moved on to The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I read the back and it had like fae elements and fantasy, so I was like, I'll just give it a go, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then after that, because I didn't have the second Holly Black book on me, I then moved on to my love, Sarah J Maas, Throne of Glass. So Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, and Kingdom of Ash. So I read all of them, reread them all again. I prefer the Throne of Glass series to ACOTAR just because I love the world building in Throne of Glass and it feels more real than ACOTAR does. Like in my head, I could imagine ACOTAR being like the fairy tales that they tell in the Throne of Glass universe. Like ACOTAR feels very distinctly fairy tale-like to me, whereas Throne of Glass feels kind of more Game of Thrones but for younger audiences, which I love. So yeah, my favorite books in the Throne of Glass series are Empire of Storms and Kingdom of Ash, and that's mainly because they've got my favorite characters Elide and Lorcan in them. I didn't really enjoy Heir of Fire often. I can't remember what happens in Heir of Fire. It's one of those books that I read it and then instantly forget about it, but the rest of them I really enjoyed. After that I moved on to Northchild by Edith Patu. This is another book that I got when I was a kid and I love it. It's based on like different fairy tales like the Snow Queen, Beauty and the Beast, Cupid and Psyche as well, the I think it's Greek legend. So there's lots of different like fairy tales and legends kind of woven in together to create this beautiful story. It's also one of my favorite childhood books that I go back to every now and then and just really, really enjoy. So I reread that. From here on out I'm just rereading books I've already read before. I reread Gloria O'Brien's History of the Future by A.S. King. I have always loved this book. It's quite political, it's funny and clever. The next 3 books are all part of the same trilogy. They're a New Zealand author. If you haven't read them, please do, because they're all amazing. I love them. First one is I Am Not Esther by Fleur Beale, which love the book. I mean, I love all 3 of the books actually. I Am Rebecca is my favorite one of the trilogy. That's also by Fleur Beale. And then Being Magdalene is the last one in the trilogy, also by Fleur Beale. And again, it's just like those food for thought books. It focuses on the lives of these children in a religious cult. So if you're kind of interested in that, these are the books for you. And then the final book that I read, bringing my total up to 31 books in 2024, was another one of my favorites, To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. I just love this book, mainly because I love the aesthetic of the book and I love of Lara Jean Covey, because Lara Jean Song Covey, I should say, because I don't think I have ever related to a character as much as I have related to Lara Jean. I just think she is me on so many levels, and it's just quite nice to kind of really connect with a character and be like, I really understand this character and I just love her, and I love the book. Peter is also great in the books as well. It's that cute little like teen romance novel, and yeah, just 10 out of 10 stars. So that was the last book that I read. But yeah, so those were all of the 31 books that I read in 2024 and kind of my take on each one. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what your reading goal is for 2025, what your favorite book is, what your favorite book that you read was last year, any book recommendations as well that I can add to my GoodReads, because I am always on the lookout for new reads. I think last year I did a lot of rereading novels. I buy my books, and so I can always go back to them, but obviously I've already read everything on my bookshelf, so any new book recommendations that I can go and get, please let me know. Yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, to all of that good stuff. I will see you next Monday with a new video, but until then, have a lovely day and a fabulous week. Bye!
It's rated X. That means you're extra.